20 Black Celebs that are actually psychopaths. Welcome to our channel, Legends of Black Excellence. Today, we're diving deep into the dark side of fame with 20 black celebs that are actually psychopaths. From shocking violence to jaw-dropping meltdowns, these stories pull back the curtain on the disturbing behavior some stars tried to hide. You might love their work, but after this, you'll never look at them the same way again. Buckle up, because this list isn't for the faint of heart. Joe Budden. Joe Budden has never been one to hold back, whether in his music, on his podcast, or in the messy chapters of his personal life. Once known primarily for his 2003 hit, Pump It Up, Budden later reinvented himself as a brutally honest media figure. But behind the sharp commentary and lyrical rawness lies a controversial past that continues to haunt his legacy. His tumultuous relationship with model and actress Esther Baxter became tabloid fodder in 2011 after he dropped the emotionally charged track Ordinary Love, PT3. In it, Budden rapped about their breakup, her alleged infidelity, and, most chillingly, a miscarriage tied to a violent altercation between them. Rather than distancing himself from such serious claims, Budden leaned into the narrative, leaving fans to sort fact from provocation. Baxter, however, wasn't silent. In her version of events, she described a disturbing encounter, being yanked from a room by her ankles, held down against her will for nearly half an hour, and repeatedly telling him she was pregnant, all while he allegedly ignored her pleas. She later revealed photos of bruises and injuries she claimed came from that night. The images ignited widespread backlash online. Budden's reaction only fanned the flames. He downplayed the allegations, mocked the accusations on Twitter, and dismissed the leaked photos as exaggerated. While he never faced criminal conviction in this case, his online conduct raised serious questions about accountability and empathy. The incident painted a picture of a man whose need for emotional control, both in relationships and public image, could border on the obsessive. While Budden has often presented himself as a flawed but introspective artist, moments like these have made it difficult for audiences to separate the performer from the behavior. In recent years, Joe has built a following with the Joe Budden podcast, championing independence from mainstream platforms and unapologetically critiquing the entertainment industry. But the darker chapters of his past continue to linger, not because of media spin, but because he wrote them into the story himself. For all his talk of growth and maturity, the question remains, is Joe Budden just brutally honest, or is that honesty a smokescreen for something far more disturbing? Chris Brown. Chris Brown's rise to fame was meteoric. He had the voice, the moves, and the charm to become the next global pop icon. By his late teens, he was already a household name. But in 2009, everything changed in a single night, and the world saw a side of him that would never be forgotten. On the eve of the Grammy Awards, Brown violently assaulted his then-girlfriend, singer Rihanna, during an argument in his car. The graphic police report and the shocking photo of Rihanna's bruised and bloodied face were seared into public memory. The incident wasn't just a career scandal, it was a cultural reckoning. Brown turned himself in and eventually pled guilty to felony assault. As part of a plea deal, he avoided jail but was sentenced to community service, anger management classes, and 5 years of probation. Public opinion split sharply. Some fans forgave him, citing youth and redemption. Others couldn't stomach how quickly the industry welcomed him back. But redemption didn't come easy, or completely. Brown's post-scandal years were marked by erratic behavior, Twitter tirades, altercations with fellow artists, smashed dressing rooms, and repeated probation violations. In 2012, he tested positive for marijuana while on supervised release, once again putting him in the crosshairs of the legal system. His run-ins with the law painted a picture of someone deeply struggling with impulse control and accountability. Even so, Brown remained musically prolific. He released hit after hit, collaborated with A-listers, and sold out tours. But the shadow of that 2009 incident has never left, and neither has the pattern of controversy. From restraining orders to lawsuits, Brown's name has been synonymous with both talent and turbulence. Some believe he's a tragic case of a gifted artist undone by his own demons. Others argue he's been given far too many second chances. What's undeniable is the contradiction he embodies, a man who sings about love with breathtaking vulnerability, yet whose actions have repeatedly shown cruelty and volatility. Chris Brown might still dominate charts, but for many, his legacy remains a cautionary tale, not of a fall from grace, but of a man who never fully stood back up. Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is known worldwide as one of the greatest boxers to ever step into the ring, an undefeated champion whose defensive skill and precision have earned him billions. But while his record in boxing is flawless, his record outside the ring is stained by a history of violence, particularly against women. The first cracks in Mayweather's public image appeared in 2002, when he was charged with 2 counts of domestic violence and 1 count of battery. He received a suspended sentence, house arrest, and community service. Rather than an isolated incident, this marked the beginning of a disturbing pattern. In 2004, he was again convicted of assaulting 2 women, prompting the court to warn that jail time was imminent if he offended again. And offend again he did. In 2010, the most serious allegations surfaced. His ex-girlfriend, Josie Harris, accused him of a violent attack in front of their children. Initially arrested for theft, the case evolved into a far more severe situation when charges of battery and coercion were added. Harris stated that Mayweather stormed into her home, pulled her by the hair, twisted her arm, and punched her in the head, all while their kids watched helplessly. Mayweather eventually took a plea deal, serving a 90-day jail sentence, completing 100 hours of community service, and attending a year-long domestic violence program. Though he never admitted guilt beyond the legal minimum, the story left a lasting impact on his reputation. Despite the gravity of the charges and his criminal record, Mayweather's career barely faltered. He continued to headline major pay-per-view events, raking in millions with each bout. He flaunted wealth on social media, branded himself, TBE, the best ever, and remained largely unrepentant about his past. What makes Mayweather's story particularly unsettling is the disconnect between his public persona and his personal conduct. In the ring, he's a master tactician, disciplined, controlled, strategic. But outside the ropes, his repeated abuse allegations suggest someone dangerously impulsive and unchecked. The justice system may have let him off with slaps on the wrist, but public memory is not so forgiving. For all his championship belts and lavish lifestyle, Floyd Mayweather's most lasting legacy may not be his victories, but the silence that often followed his violence. Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard has long captivated audiences with his magnetic screen presence, from Hustle and Flow to Empire. His performances often exude a simmering intensity, a man teetering between charm and danger. But as it turns out, that duality isn't just an acting choice, it's a reflection of a troubling reality off-screen. Howard's first major controversy surfaced in 2001 when he was arrested for assaulting his then-wife, Lori McComas. What began as a heated phone argument escalated violently. Howard showed up at her home, broke down the door, and punched her repeatedly, until his brother intervened. He later pled guilty to disorderly conduct, and the case was quietly closed. But the pattern didn't stop there. In 2000, a year prior, Howard had already been arrested for assaulting a flight attendant who asked him to fasten his seatbelt. And in 2011, a restraining order was issued against him by his second wife, Michelle Gent. She alleged repeated physical abuse, destruction of property, and obsessive harassment via phone and email. 2 years later, another restraining order followed, this time with visible injuries. Gent appeared in court with a black eye, claiming Howard had struck her during a vacation argument. While many celebrities work hard to distance themselves from such accusations, Howard did the unthinkable. In a 2015 interview with Rolling Stone, he admitted to hitting his first wife during that 2001 incident. "She was talking to me real strong, and I lost my mind," he confessed. The candidness was jarring, less a moment of reflection and more an eerie justification. What makes Howard's story even more unsettling is how little it slowed his career. Despite the disturbing allegations, he continued to land major roles and red carpet appearances. While some fans criticized the industry's tolerance, others seemed willing to separate art from artist, perhaps too easily. Howard has occasionally spoken about his troubled upbringing and the emotional baggage he carried into adulthood. But understanding pain doesn't excuse passing it on. His repeated violence and the chilling consistency of his behavior point not to a man haunted by mistakes, but to someone who has yet to truly own them. Behind the red carpet smiles and smooth-talking characters lies a portrait of volatility, one Hollywood has too often ignored. Pilar Sanders. Once known for her glamorous presence on red carpets and reality TV, Pilar Sanders became a household name for reasons that had little to do with fashion or fame, and everything to do with courtroom drama and domestic unrest. Pilar's tumultuous split from NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders played out like a public soap opera, with a disturbing incident in 2012 drawing national attention. According to Deion, the confrontation began when Pilar entered his bedroom and launched into an explosive argument, all while their two young sons were present. He later alleged that the situation spiraled into physical aggression, claiming Pilar attempted to bite him as he tried to remove her from the room. What shocked the public wasn't just the accusation, but Deion's next move. He tweeted a photo of himself and the children filling out police reports, urging followers to "pray for my kids." While the tweet was later deleted, the message had already gone viral. It painted a picture not just of a marital meltdown, but of chaos unfolding in front of impressionable children. Pilar was arrested and jailed, with her bond set unusually high at $264, compounded by her refusal to take a required tuberculosis test in custody. Her lawyer remained tight-lipped, reminding the media that there are always two sides to every story. Pilar, in turn, accused Deion of slander and filed a $200 million lawsuit, intensifying what was already one of the messiest celebrity divorces in recent memory. This wasn't a simple case of irreconcilable differences, it was a powder keg of public spectacle, allegations, and psychological toll. For many, it raised serious concerns about how unresolved animosity can spill into violence, especially in families with children caught in the crossfire. While both Pilar and Deion moved on in their respective lives, the incident left a permanent stain on their legacies. It wasn't about who threw the first punch, it was about a relationship that collapsed so publicly and so destructively that no amount of fame could make it go away. Gary Dourdan. At the height of his career, Gary Dourdan was a television fixture, a fan favorite on CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, known for his brooding charm and on-screen charisma. But behind the scenes, his life veered into a much darker direction, riddled with legal troubles and personal collapse. In 2020, headlines once again swirled around Dourdan after his ex-girlfriend, Nicole Cannizzaro, accused him of physical assault during a disturbing series of events. According to Cannizzaro, it began at a local Whole Foods, where she claimed Dourdan physically attacked her while shopping with his child. Things escalated when she later returned to his apartment to collect her belongings, only to be met with more alleged violence. Cannizzaro stated she tried calling 911 but was reportedly blocked by one of Dourdan's roommates. Luckily, a concerned neighbor overheard the altercation and contacted police. When law enforcement arrived, Dourdan was arrested, and Cannizzaro was granted a restraining order. She would go on to sue him for assault, battery, and emotional distress, demanding at least $25,000 in damages. But Dourdan's version of events was drastically different. He claimed that Cannizzaro had taken his child without permission, implying that the confrontation stemmed from that violation. His legal team pointed to her civil lawsuit as a potential ploy for financial gain, casting doubt on her motivations and complicating the criminal proceedings. The entire incident raised uncomfortable questions. Was this a misunderstanding fueled by custody conflict, or something more sinister? Though he hasn't been convicted in this specific case, Dourdan's personal life has been peppered with run-ins with the law, including past arrests for drug possession and alleged domestic issues. It paints a portrait of a man once poised for long-term Hollywood success, now navigating a minefield of public scrutiny and legal entanglements. Once the face of law enforcement fiction, Gary Dourdan is now better known for his real-life entanglements with it, a painful irony for a star whose fame was built on solving crime, not becoming part of the headlines himself. Chad Johnson. Chad Johnson, formerly Chad Okocinco, was once the NFL's king of charisma. Known for his electrifying footwork on the field and outlandish antics off of it, he turned touchdowns into performance art. But while fans admired his showmanship, few expected that behind the flashy smile was a man teetering on the edge of emotional collapse. In 2012, Johnson's public image took a nosedive when his month-old marriage to reality star Evelyn Lozada imploded. The spark? a receipt for condoms that Evelyn found in his car, an explosive discovery that led to a violent argument. According to police reports, Johnson responded by headbutting her, leaving a noticeable injury. Evelyn fled to a neighbor's home and filed a domestic battery report. The media pounced, and the fallout was immediate. Johnson was arrested and charged. Though he pled no contest, a legal move that avoided admission of guilt but accepted punishment, his sentence included a year of probation and mandatory anger management classes. The scandal shattered the football star's image and abruptly ended his brief marriage, which lasted just 41 days. Unfortunately, this wasn't his first brush with domestic violence. A prior arrest in 2000 for a similar incident didn't make headlines at the time, but in retrospect, painted a pattern of behavior that was far from isolated. Johnson's fall from grace was rapid. Once a staple of sports highlights and endorsement deals, he found himself on the sidelines, both professionally and publicly. Reality shows and social media would keep his name in circulation, but the damage to his reputation was hard to undo. What makes Chad Johnson's story particularly striking is the contrast between the public persona and private volatility. He built a brand around joy, confidence, and outrageous flair, but beneath it all was a man struggling to manage his emotions in the moments that mattered most. Years later, Johnson has spoken about growth and learning from his past. But for many, the headbutt heard around the world remains a chilling reminder of how quickly charm can crumble under the weight of unchecked anger. Ike Turner. Ike Turner helped shape the sound of rock and roll, but his legacy is far more infamous than it is inspirational. As a musician, he was groundbreaking. As a husband and partner, he was deeply destructive. In the early 1960s, Ike and Tina Turner were hailed as one of music's most dynamic duos. Behind their electrifying stage presence, however, was a nightmare Tina would later reveal in harrowing detail. Married in 1962, Tina endured years of psychological torment and brutal physical abuse. She spoke of being beaten with coat hangers, scalded with hot coffee, and struck with wooden objects, even while pregnant. One of the most horrifying accounts involved Ike attacking her with a shoe stretcher, leaving Tina bedridden and hopeless. Feeling trapped, she once attempted to overdose on sleeping pills. She survived, but the trauma lingered. Still, she continued to perform alongside him, masking the chaos with sequins and smiles. In 1978, Tina finally escaped. And in 1981, she bravely broke her silence, detailing the abuse in interviews and later in her memoir. Her candor redefined public conversations around domestic violence and helped countless survivors feel seen. Ike, for his part, denied or minimized the abuse for years. In a 1990 interview, he begrudgingly admitted to slapping Tina, but blamed it on her sadness, refusing to take full accountability. His refusal to show true remorse only further alienated fans and reinforced the perception that he was incapable of confronting the damage he caused. Despite brief attempts at musical comebacks and an eventual Grammy win in the early 2000s, Ike never fully rehabilitated his public image. When he died in 2007 at the age of 76, the music world acknowledged his talent, but rarely with admiration. Tina Turner, meanwhile, rose as a symbol of strength and survival, outshining the man who tried to control and destroy her. Ike Turner may have helped invent rock and roll, but history remembers him for something far more sinister, a legacy of violence that no guitar riff could drown out. Flavor Flav. Flavor Flav is one of hip-hop's most recognizable figures, clock-wearing, high-energy, and always louder than life. As the wild-eyed hype man of the legendary group Public Enemy, he became a cultural icon. But when the beat stops, Flav's real-life behavior has often revealed a darker, more volatile side. In 2012, a disturbing incident at his Las Vegas home put Flav back in headlines, not for his over-the-top personality, but for a frightening domestic dispute. According to police reports, Flav got into a heated argument with his girlfriend's teenage son. What started as yelling turned terrifying when he allegedly chased the boy through the house with a knife, ultimately stabbing the blade into a bedroom door. The charges were serious. He faced up to 12 years in prison for assault with a deadly weapon and battery related to domestic violence. But in court, Flav struck a plea deal. He admitted to attempted battery and acknowledged using a weapon during the altercation. He avoided jail time but walked away with a scarred reputation. Even more unsettling was his attempt to downplay the situation. He referred to the teen as his son and said they had reconciled. To critics, it felt like emotional manipulation rather than sincere accountability. This wasn't Flav's only brush with the law. His personal history includes multiple arrests for domestic violence, drug charges, and driving offenses. Despite these red flags, Flav repeatedly rebranded himself through reality TV stardom, becoming the chaotic heart of Flavor of Love and Strange Love. While fans laughed at his antics, others questioned why serious behavioral issues were being played for ratings. Flav's legacy is torn between two extremes, pioneer and problem. He helped revolutionize hip-hop with Public Enemy and earned a place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But his inability to separate showmanship from personal recklessness continues to haunt him. For someone who built his fame on turning up the volume, Flavor Flav's most disturbing moments are the ones no one should have had to hear about in the first place. Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell has graced the world's most prestigious runways, redefined what it means to be a supermodel, and broken racial barriers in fashion with her fierce walk and undeniable presence. But for all her achievements, Naomi's legacy comes with an undeniable asterisk: her well-documented temper. Over the years, Campbell's name became synonymous not just with high fashion, but with high-profile outbursts. Reports of her aggressive behavior toward assistants, housekeepers, and staff circulated throughout the 2000s. Former employees accused her of throwing phones, spitting, slapping, and even striking them during moments of rage. In one infamous case, she was taken to court after allegedly hitting an assistant with a cell phone, an incident that grabbed headlines across the globe. Despite the shocking allegations, Naomi's response was not outright denial. Instead, she admitted in later interviews that she struggled with anger issues, even undergoing court-mandated anger management classes. Her candor about working to change won her some sympathy, but many critics questioned whether her apologies matched the damage left in her wake. The fashion industry, known for its selective memory, often gave her a pass. Some collaborators dismissed the incidents as passion or stress, while others avoided the topic altogether. Still, the public began to see two Naomi Campbells: one, a trailblazing icon of elegance and power; the other, a woman whose volatility occasionally erupted behind closed doors. To her credit, Naomi has taken steps to shift her narrative. She's used her platform to mentor younger models, advocate for diversity, and speak openly about personal growth. In recent years, she's softened her image while retaining the edge that made her legendary. But the stories of flying objects and bruised assistants linger, like bruises the industry prefers to cover with designer sunglasses. Naomi Campbell may have owned the catwalk with confidence and poise, but her reputation for cruelty reminds us that glamour can cast long shadows. Behind the velvet ropes and couture gowns was a woman battling demons that no stylist could fix. Suge Knight. To understand the rise and fall of gangsta rap, you only need to look at one man, Suge Knight. Towering in both stature and reputation, he was once the iron-fisted force behind Death Row Records, the label that launched legends like Tupac Shakur, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg. But behind the platinum records and street anthems was a man whose obsession with power and control eventually destroyed everything he built. From the very beginning, Suge's leadership was laced with intimidation. Stories of threats, physical violence, and boardroom bullying weren't just whispered, they were expected. Artists feared crossing him, and rivals steered clear. Suge created a culture of fear, turning Death Row into both a musical powerhouse and a ticking time bomb. But the mask fully dropped in 2015, during a deadly confrontation outside a burger stand in Los Angeles. Caught on surveillance, Suge ran over two men with his truck, killing one and injuring the other. Though he claimed self-defense, prosecutors painted a picture of a man who saw violence as a solution. In 2018, he was sentenced to 28 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter, marking a stunning downfall for someone who once ruled West Coast rap with an iron grip. The hit and run wasn't an isolated act. Suge had been orbiting legal disaster for decades, facing charges ranging from assault and weapons violations to parole violations and making criminal threats. His rap sheet reads like a warning sign the industry ignored for far too long. Even in the world of hip-hop, where larger-than-life personas are the norm, Suge's real-life brutality stood out. His legacy isn't just marred by violence, it's defined by it. Death Row Records, once a symbol of black cultural dominance, eventually crumbled under the weight of its founders' unchecked aggression. Suge Knight's story isn't just a cautionary tale about power, it's proof that fear-based empires may rise fast, but they collapse even harder. 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson didn't just rise to fame, he exploded into it. From surviving 9 gunshots to dominating the charts with Get Rich or Die Tryin', 50 became a symbol of resilience, hustle, and unapologetic grit. But behind the success lies a man who doesn't just court conflict, he crafts it, profits from it, and sometimes lets it consume him. 50 Cent is infamous for his long-running feud with fellow rapper Ja Rule. What started as a music industry beef turned into something almost operatic. Diss tracks, interviews, memes, nothing was off limits. In one of his pettiest yet most brutal moves, 50 reportedly bought 200 front-row seats to a Ja Rule concert just so the seats would sit empty. To some, it was a hilarious flex. To others, it was disturbingly obsessive. But his pettiness didn't stop with rivals. He's publicly humiliated talk show hosts, poked fun at mental health issues, and hurled insults at his own teenage son, Marquise. Their fractured relationship has played out on social media, where 50 once implied he wouldn't care if his son got hit by a bus. Even for someone known for savage one-liners, this one landed with a thud. His digital persona, sharp-tongued, unforgiving, and often ruthless, has made him a villain and a hero, depending on who you ask. He's trolled everyone from Wendy Williams to Madonna, always walking a fine line between clever and cruel. And yet, 50 Cent is also a shrewd businessman. He built an entertainment empire spanning music, fashion, liquor, and hit television shows like Power. His charitable work and business acumen have earned him respect in spaces far beyond hip-hop. That's what makes his story so polarizing. Is 50 a brilliant provocateur, or a man unable to separate pettiness from purpose? For now, he continues to thrive in controversy, wearing it like armor. But when your persona is built on feuds, it's hard to know where the character ends, and the chaos begins. Willow Smith. Born into fame as the daughter of Hollywood royalty, Willow Smith seemed destined for the limelight. At just 9 years old, she took the world by storm with her debut single Whip My Hair, a viral anthem of self-expression that catapulted her into international stardom. But while fans saw a confident young star on the rise, Willow was quietly unraveling behind the scenes. During an emotional episode of Red Table Talk, Willow revealed that the massive success of Whip My Hair left her feeling lost, disoriented, and emotionally hollow. The pressure to perform, please, and keep up with the momentum became suffocating. Not long after canceling the rest of her album plans, she began spiraling into a dark mental state, one she didn't share with her famous parents or even her siblings. In a brutally honest moment, she confessed that the disconnect between her outer image and inner turmoil led her to self-harm. "I felt like I was experiencing so much, and I couldn't talk about it," she said, recalling how she began secretly cutting herself. It wasn't about attention, it was about pain without a voice. For over a year, no one in her family had any idea. Willow's candor stunned viewers, especially her mother, Jada Pinkett Smith, who admitted she had been completely unaware of the depths of her daughter's suffering. It was a powerful reminder that mental health issues don't discriminate, not by age, talent, or privilege. But perhaps the most striking part of Willow's story is her self-awareness. One night, she had a realization: this is psychotic. It was the turning point. She never self-harmed again after that moment, choosing instead to seek balance through mindfulness, music, and honest conversation. Willow Smith may have grown up in a house of fame, but her journey has been about reclaiming her own identity, not as someone's daughter or a viral sensation, but as a young woman who confronted her darkness and chose healing. Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall made headlines as a top-tier NFL wide receiver, known for his incredible catches and explosive athleticism. But behind the touchdowns and ESPN highlights was a man battling a far more elusive opponent, his own mind. In 2011, Marshall made a bold and unprecedented move for a professional athlete. He publicly disclosed that he had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD. This wasn't just a press release or passing interview quote, It was a full-on commitment to breaking the stigma around mental health, particularly in the hypermasculine world of professional sports. Before his diagnosis, Marshall's behavior had raised eyebrows. He'd been involved in multiple off-field altercations, faced legal issues, and struggled to maintain stability in both his personal and professional life. To many, he seemed like another talented athlete wasting his potential. But the truth was far more complicated, and far more human. BPD is a condition marked by intense mood swings, unstable relationships, impulsive behavior, and a fractured sense of self. For Marshall, getting that diagnosis was like turning on a light in a dark room. It didn't solve everything, but it gave him a starting point, and a way forward. Rather than hide it, he leaned into the conversation. He co-founded Project 375, a mental health awareness nonprofit dedicated to changing the way people talk about and treat mental illness. He used his platform not just to share his story, but to amplify others who were suffering in silence. Marshall's openness marked a turning point in how athletes, and the public, view mental health. He shifted from being seen as troubled to trailblazer, showing that vulnerability and strength aren't opposites, they're intertwined. In a list filled with scandals and self-destruction, Brandon Marshall's story stands out for its redemption arc. He's not defined by the disorder he battles, but by the courage it took to name it, fight it, and then help others do the same. Kanye West, Ye. Few celebrities have blurred the line between brilliance and breakdown like Kanye West. From redefining hip-hop with genre-bending albums to disrupting fashion and politics, Ye, his chosen name, has built a legacy both groundbreaking and deeply controversial. But while his artistic genius is undeniable, so too is the storm of erratic behavior that often overshadows it. His most infamous moment came in 2009 at the MTV Video Music Awards, when he stormed the stage during Taylor Swift's acceptance speech and declared Beyoncé the rightful winner. It wasn't just rude, it was bizarre, uncomfortable, and marked the beginning of a long pattern of public outbursts that seemed more impulsive than calculated. Over the years, Ye's behavior became increasingly unpredictable. He declared himself a god, claimed slavery sounded like a choice, and aligned himself with divisive political figures, all while seemingly alienating collaborators and friends, including Jay-Z and Kid Cudi. Interviews veered into incoherence, tweetstorms went unchecked, and headlines blurred the line between publicity and personal crisis. Many wrote it off as arrogance or provocation. But Ye later revealed he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a disclosure that added new complexity to his actions. He described his manic episodes as moments of creativity, rage, and divine clarity, though they often led to very public meltdowns and professional fallout. Despite everything, Kanye continues to produce music, fashion lines, viral statements. He has built empires, lost partnerships, and stirred cultural debate like no other. To his supporters, he's a misunderstood genius. To critics, a dangerous ego unchecked. The question isn't whether Kanye is talented, it's whether his brilliance can exist without destruction. Can the same mind that gave us the college dropout also be the one that implodes under pressure? In Ye's world, boundaries don't exist, between art and politics, genius and instability, creation and collapse. And while that chaos may fuel his greatness, it also leaves a trail of confusion, hurt, and headlines in its wake. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson's story is one of the most infamous reversals in American celebrity history. Once a beloved football icon, movie star, and charismatic pitchman, the Juice represented success, charm, and crossover appeal. But all of that came crashing down in 1994, when he went from hero to headline for all the wrong reasons. That summer, the nation was stunned by the brutal murders of Simpson's ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. Suspicion quickly turned to O.J., and what followed was a cultural earthquake. His slow-speed police chase in a white Ford Bronco became one of the most watched televised events in history. The trial of the century that followed gripped the nation, blending celebrity obsession with racial tension and tabloid spectacle. Simpson's legal team, dubbed the Dream Team, crafted a defense that raised doubt, famously turning the trial on a single phrase: "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." And acquit they did. O.J. walked free in 1995, but not in the court of public opinion. For many, his freedom felt like a failure of justice. But OJ's troubles didn't end with the verdict. In 2007, he was arrested in Las Vegas for armed robbery and kidnapping after attempting to recover what he claimed were stolen sports memorabilia. This time, there were no superstar lawyers or clever rhymes. Simpson was convicted and sentenced to 33 years in prison. He served 9 before being released on parole in 2017. Until his death in 2024 at age 76, OJ lived as a cultural ghost, never quite accepted, never entirely erased. His public appearances were often surreal, his social media presence unnerving. For some, he remained a symbol of injustice. For others, he was a tragic figure who squandered everything. O.J. Simpson's name is forever etched into American history, but not for his touchdowns or movie roles. His story is a cautionary tale of how fame, violence, and denial can collide, and how sometimes, walking free isn't the same as being free. Bobby Brown. At his peak, Bobby Brown was R&B royalty, a powerhouse performer with chart-topping hits like My Prerogative and Every Little Step, and a stage presence as wild as it was magnetic. As a founding member of New Edition and a solo sensation, Bobby helped define late 80s and early 90s pop culture. But behind the flashy dance moves and bravado was a man spiraling through addiction, domestic chaos, and self-destruction. Brown's turbulent relationship with Whitney Houston was one of the most scrutinized celebrity marriages of the era. What began as a glamorous union between two music icons quickly unraveled into a toxic storm of substance abuse, codependency, and violence. Their fights made headlines, their reality show shocked viewers, and their love, once celebrated, turned into a cautionary tale. In 2003, Bobby was arrested for domestic violence after an argument with Whitney turned physical. The news rocked fans who once saw them as the ultimate power couple. It wasn't the first time trouble found him, either. His rap sheet included a growing list of drug and alcohol offenses, parole violations, and public outbursts. At times, it seemed Bobby Brown was trying to outpace his own destruction. But Bobby wasn't just battling the law, he was battling himself. He later admitted that his addictions, impulsiveness, and need for control nearly destroyed him. Whitney's death in 2012, followed by the tragic loss of their daughter Bobby Christina in 2015, further devastated him and forced a painful reckoning with the past. In more recent years, Brown has attempted a slow, sobering return to the spotlight, clean, reflective, and focused on family. But no matter how much healing takes place, the scars of his public implosion remain. Bobby Brown once declared that living life his way was his prerogative. But for many years, that freedom came at a devastating cost, to himself, to his loved ones, and to his legacy. His story is a sobering reminder that even the brightest stars can burn out from within. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson wasn't just a heavyweight champion, he was a cultural force. Explosive, unpredictable, and unmatched in the ring, Iron Mike became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at just 20 years old. But his reign wasn't just about fists, it was also about fury, chaos, and a personal life that often felt more violent than the sport he dominated. From the beginning, Tyson's rage was both his weapon and his weakness. Raised in the roughest corners of Brooklyn, he was a child hardened by the streets. Under the guidance of trainer Cus D'Amato, he channeled that aggression into boxing, and made history. But after D'Amato's death, Tyson's personal demons took over. In 1992, his world came crashing down when he was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Though he served just 3, the trial and conviction marked a permanent rupture in his legacy. Tyson maintained his innocence, but the damage, both legal and reputational, was done. His return to boxing was overshadowed by bizarre behavior and escalating controversy. In 1997, he infamously bit off a piece of Evander Holyfield's ear during a title bout, a moment that symbolized the full unraveling of a once invincible champion. He was disqualified, banned, and labeled unhinged. Outside the ring, Tyson's life was no less chaotic. He battled substance abuse, blew through a $300 million fortune, and cycled in and out of rehab and legal trouble. His volatile temper and violent outbursts made headlines just as often as his comeback attempts. And yet, in later years, something shifted. Tyson began speaking openly about his struggles with mental health, trauma, and inner rage. Through therapy, spiritual exploration, and surprising ventures like his one-man show and cannabis business, he began rewriting his story, not as a redemption arc, but as a raw confession. Mike Tyson is both a cautionary tale and a testament to survival. He rose as a titan, fell as a cautionary figure, and now stands as a man still learning to master the very rage that once made him a legend. Big Sean. Big Sean isn't the kind of artist often associated with controversy or chaos. Known for his lyrical precision, smooth delivery, and introspective verses, he rose to fame as one of the most grounded voices in hip-hop. But beneath the success and polished image was a battle that nearly broke him, and unlike many of his peers, he wasn't afraid to talk about it. In interviews and lyrics alike, Sean has been refreshingly honest about his struggles with mental health. At the height of his fame, when his records were topping charts and his life seemed picture-perfect, he revealed that he was silently battling depression and anxiety. The deeper his success grew, the more disconnected he felt from himself. There came a point, he admitted, when he no longer recognized who he was living for: fans, labels, expectations, but not for himself. That revelation forced a pause. Sean took time away from music, distanced himself from the pressures of celebrity life, and sought help through therapy and self-care. He didn't hide the process. Instead, he turned it into part of his message, encouraging fans to meditate, set boundaries, and prioritize mental health. In a genre where vulnerability is often masked by bravado, Big Sean leaned into emotional honesty without losing his edge. He also made headlines for cutting ties with toxic habits, people, and even professional collaborators. It wasn't about drama, it was about survival. In a culture where pushing through pain is glorified, Sean chose to slow down, reflect, and heal. Big Sean's journey doesn't involve arrests or violence, but it does confront a different kind of internal chaos, the kind that festers in silence. His story serves as a reminder that not all battles are visible, and that emotional wounds can be just as dangerous as physical ones. Rather than being a cautionary tale, Big Sean stands as a blueprint for growth, a young black man who stared down his demons not with destruction, but with determination. And in doing so, he became something rare in entertainment, a voice of calm in the storm. Behind the fame, fortune, and flashing lights, some of these stars revealed sides of themselves that shocked the world, proving that success doesn't always come with self-control. From disturbing outbursts to long-hidden traumas, these stories remind us that even the most iconic figures can have deeply unsettling pasts. But now we want to hear from you. Which story shocked you the most? Do you believe some of these celebrities deserve a second chance, or are their actions simply unforgivable? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button, and share it with someone who loves pop culture deep dives as much as you do. And for more raw, real, and revealing stories about your favorite stars, subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes open, because not every icon is what they seem.